gonna go live, and then I'm gonna send out the link here. Let's go to. Should be in here somewhere. I don't know why. Sometimes the link is so hard to find. I'm not sure why it's not there. Well,
the link to share it?
Yeah, I was looking for the link to share it here.
You got to go to YouTube.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for on it. Maybe it's easier on my phone. Oh, here we go. I got it.
Okay. Let's see. I can find it. GFA.
All right. Yeah, here we go.
Oh, it doesn't say we're. Oh yeah, it says we're live.
Yeah, we're live right now. I just wanted to post it in there and kit before. All right. Let's go ahead and get started.
Yes, sir.
Welcome to the preseason post free agency draft rankings. This will be the only preseason ranking, unless we really deem that it's going to be necessary to do another one, but until after week 1. So let's go ahead and get into it. We based all of these rankings. We graded each position group and then gave an overall grade. We're not going to put them 1 to 12 yet. I might put that into the Discord at a later date. Just really wanted to break down where the teams were at this very moment. Not everybody has contracts yet, and Michael says Rex smells like cheese. So we're basing these grades on the positions and overall based on talent, the depth at each position, and then the ability to make in-season adjustments based on the salaries that these guys are getting paid. For the most part, we saw that it looked like bidding was down overall. And then a lot of people had money at the end. And so a lot of depth pieces, their salaries like skyrocketed based on like compared to their value. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out going forward. But let's just go ahead and get into it. Michael, I'm glad that you're here because we're going over the hitmen first. We've got Josh Allen, Breece Hall, Christian McCaffrey, CeeDee Lamb, Deebo Samuel, Dalton Schultz, A-Chain, White, Cooper. I mean, this team is very good. Having Josh Allen as a quarterback, and I think the only thing that Rex, when we were talking about this and giving them grades earlier, is that there is a lot of question marks with some youth, particularly at the quarterback position. Obviously, Josh Allen is good. Caleb Williams has looked like he's good, but he has not played a actual NFL game yet. Daniel Jones is hot ass. So that is an issue. Hopefully he can just plug in and see Daniel Jones. Okay, just so we can see what's going on in the comment section here. Ryan says Michael Teams is such buns, and then Michael replied that he can't wait to see Ryan's grade. He's sure he won't complain about it. I think that's accurate. So let's go ahead and get into the grades for Michael Holmes here. For the quarterbacks, I'm probably going to flip back and forth here, just so we can see. I'm going to spoil some of the other grades here. For quarterbacks, we gave an A minus. The reason for that is because we don't know enough about Caleb Williams yet. And Daniel Jones is just going to be a guy that Michael plugs in on bye weeks. Wide receivers at a B, and that's mainly because we have CeeDee Lamb and we have Deebo Samuel and we have Amari Cooper. I think those are very solid. Outside of that, I'm not crazy about the depth that this team has at the wide receiver position. Pickens, I think, is good. Neighbors is too young to know, and I'm not crazy about the Giants. The scenario that the Giants have at the moment in terms of throwing the ball. So that's why it's a B. The ceiling is very high. I think that's what we agreed on, Rex, that the ceiling for this wide receiver core is pretty high, but predicting these guys out to be higher than anything other than a B, I think is a little bit tough.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That was my only really true knock on this team is like, yeah, their top 2-3 guys look solid, but it's a kind of question mark after that of if those guys can fill in and be solid. If there is an injury, I mean, injuries happen, and we'll see somebody go down at some point.
Yeah, and going off of that, I mean, the wide receiver, we tried to find holes in this team, and we had to point towards the wide receivers. But as far as running backs go, I think that Michael has the best running back room in the league. That's why he got an A plus for running backs. He's got a ton of depth. He's got handcuffs where necessary. And I mean, with Breece Hall and Christian McCaffrey leading the backfield here, I think is just going to be extremely, extremely good for Michael going forward. And if an unfortunate injury happens, he's very prepared at the running back position. As far as tight ends go, Dalton Schultz, fine. Cole Kmet, good. And as far as tight ends go with the grades, as long as you had some sort of depth and it's a guy in a position in a system that will put them around the end zone quite a bit. I mean, I don't think too many tight end grades got very bad. So we gave him an A there for an overall of an A minus. I mean, I think that this team's going to be pretty good going into the season. And I think to think that that's not the case is silly. So Hitman, congratulations. You got an A minus grade for the start of the season. Moving on to the Beecher Creatures. Jalen Hurts going to be taking the snaps for the Creatures along with Jared Goff and then Aaron Rodgers as the backup. I gave you a A for the quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts and Jared Goff, I think, are going to be incredible pieces. And I mean, with having to play Aaron Rodgers as a backup, I think that's I think that's a solid problem to have. As far as running backs go, Bijan Robinson, Jonathan Taylor, very, very solid. I think that was the main thing that with your running backs. While you have two very solid running backs, I wasn't 100% on the depth just because in terms of like playing time and things like that. But there's a lot of upside here with the running backs and Rico Dowdle, Jalen Warren, especially if Najee Harris doesn't end up panning out for the Steelers. And then as far as the wide receivers go, there's a couple of question marks in Drake London. Puka Nacua, whether or not he can repeat or not. Obviously, cat's out of the bag. Puka Nacua is good. So he's not going to surprise anybody. I think Christian Kirk takes a step up this year. But JSN, he's going to be competing for targets. And apparently you can get it, Rex.
Oh. So
Lord. And as far as tight ends, you got Trey McBride, and then you have Gesicki. Like I said, we're not super harsh on the tight ends. It ends up giving you an overall grade of an A-. I think this is a solid team. I don't think there's too many holes. There's plenty of depth. Michael seems to disagree, but I think that this team, I don't think on paper it wows you a lot. And I think that's mainly because I think your biggest guys are obviously going to be Bijan, Jonathan Taylor, and St. Brown. I think those are the guys that are going to be carrying your team for the most part. So, any words about the creatures, Rex?
They're here to kick ass. That's it.
All right. Let's move on to the Tennessee Colonels. Led by C.J. Stroud and Tua Tagovailoa at the quarterback position, with Sam Darnold as the backup. I think C.J. Stroud and Tua are going to be very solid. Sam Darnold, I'm not crazy about as the backup. I don't think that we should forget history as it does repeat itself. Sam Darnold is not good. So we gave him an A just because of the C.J. Stroud and Tua. Unfortunately, we cannot skip Chase's ratings because they are important. He is an owner here. We gave him an A for the quarterback position. Running backs, I think, is where he's hurting a little bit. Josh Jacobs and Aaron Jones, they are a little fragile. Josh Jacobs less so than Aaron Jones. Dameon Pierce and A.J. Dillon and Brian Robinson as depth pieces. Okay. We gave him a B for running backs just because, like I said, nothing's really jumping off the page here in terms of running backs, but where he does make up for it in Tyreek Hill, Nico Collins, Christian Watson, and Jahan Dotson, who I think is going to be good in Washington this year, and MHJ. We can't forget about MHJ. And he still has Thomas Jr. on his practice squad.
And Rashee
Rice. Yeah. So
I mean, it's going to be the Rice and Worthy show with Marquise Brown out.
A ton of depth. We gave him an A at running back. For tight ends, I arguably could have made this one lower. I'm biased to Njoku, but Rex, you made a point that Njoku was only good whenever Flacco was on the field, which there is something to be said about that.
There's no Joe Flacco anymore.
Chiggy Okonkwo sucks ass. Luke Musgrave is good. I like Luke Musgrave.
I'm also pretty sure that Njoku went for like $80-some, right? It was something stupid.
I would have to double check that.
I'll look it up. You can keep talking.
Okay. So yeah, let's. So we gave him a B for tight end as an overall B plus. I think he could have done better in the draft. And that's, he didn't have a whole lot of room, I don't think, going forward. How much did he end up getting paid?
$51.
That's expensive, especially whenever you consider that Travis Kelce went for 80.
Yeah, and Njoku's barely a top 10 tight end.
All right. Rex, I'm gonna let you talk about the Coonhounds real quick while I let Gus out.
I don't know the rankings, so you might have to flip it whenever.
Oh, okay. Well, here, I'll show you the rankings.
Okay. Yep.
All right.
We had Lamar Jackson, recently acquired by Murph in a dog shit trade for Dylan. But Jackson, Love, Mayfield is depth. I think that is a great quarterback room. I believe we gave it an A of some sort. Lots of, high caliber quarterback play there. And then going on to the running backs, we have Pacheco and Walker, along with Dobbins, Edwards, Hill, Swift. Good depth here. I think that the running back room is solid, but there are some question marks. I think that the top two, in Pacheco and Walker, are definitely going to produce, but Dobbins and Edwards and Justice Hill, and DeAndre Swift, they are all just like flex type of running backs at best. So maybe a little issue at depth. I think we still gave him an A- on it. But still, A- on that. And then wide receivers, Mike Evans, Jalen Waddle, DJ Moore, Chris Godwin. I didn't even see this. It must have. I didn't know he went for $3. That was just stupid. Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, Pop Douglas. Great depth. The only thing I did knock a little bit on this is like he has good wide receivers, but there's no high-end caliber wide receiver. I mean, Mike Evans has been a top 5 wide receiver in the league before, but there's like no guys that like wow me. They're just solid players with good floors, but the ceiling I think could be capped just a little bit with guys like Jalen Waddle being a consistent starter. There's a lot of mouths to feed in Chicago, and then also having the Godwin Evans combo is going to kind of handcuff him some weeks with upside. Could be a trade piece going forward or something. I don't know. And then he kind of has the same situation in Buffalo where he's got Shakir and Samuel. He's kind of banking on Keon Coleman not being high, like the caliber that a lot of guys in the league think he's going to be. So he could kind of handcuff himself with some upside if he gets in a tight situation. But I believe we gave him an A- on those. And then the tight ends, I mean, there's nothing better than the combo of two aging but great tight ends in the league, Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews. Just a great combo. Travis Kelce went way too cheap. We shouldn't have let him get away with it for $80. But I will say, we were talking a little bit earlier and just how the early bidding kind of, I feel like, steered my game plans differently than what I was expecting. Of how basically like everybody that was a high-end wide receiver went for 200 plus. I figured that was going to happen. But then we've seen kind of like the A tier of guys like Travis Kelce. I don't even know, Keenan Allen. Like some of those guys did not go as expensive as what they should have. And then the depth pieces is what got expensive on people. So depth you had to pay for this year if you wanted to be deep. Those guys aren't worth what we paid. I was one that paid a lot for depth, but I needed the depth in order to feel solid and strong about my team. That was what was so weird about this draft is I think everybody went for the depth pieces, and then the high-end guys went for what they roughly should, but then there were also value at the tight end position of like Travis Kelce and Keenan Allen and some of those guys going cheaper than what they should have.
Yeah. Rex, pop quiz. How old is Mark Andrews?
28 probably.
He is 28. So I thought he was easily 30 years old, I guess, looking at him. But yeah.
I mean, 28's getting up there.
Is a little up there, I guess, especially in your eyes. If they're not 24, then they're
24, they aren't
over the hill. Yeah. All right. So overall, it was an A. I'm very happy with the team. I do think that there's definitely moves to be made in acquiring some guys and moving some guys around. And because I got some guys super cheap, I think I have the freedom to do so. So yeah. Let's move on to the Clark County Crusaders. We got Brock Purdy, Kirk Cousins, and Minshew as quarterbacks. I gave him a B. I mean, Brock Purdy, I think, finished in the top 10 last year for
He
quarterbacks.
did, yeah.
He's gonna be around the end zone. That's why I like Brock Purdy here. Kirk Cousins, I think he's going to be solid. And I mean, Gardner Minshew is not a great backup, and just keeping it frank. So we gave him a B. Wide receivers, Devontae Smith, Brandon Ayuk, T. Higgins, Deontay Johnson. He's got some good youth here, Jentavian Wicks, and Cortland Sutton, who's on the greatest contract. And he should be, the top guy in Denver. I think he's got, some decent depth. He, again, kind of like me, doesn't have that guy, unless you consider Devonta Smith to be, but I don't think so. And I know that Ayuk is not that guy, just that S tier wide receiver that you just can write down a minimum of 15 points each week. I think that's why we gave him an A minus. But I think that Dylan has built this core, is starting to build this core back. And so, I mean, I don't think that this team is bad at all. And I think I think I wouldn't be surprised if you told me that this team is a fringe playoff team towards the end, especially with some of the other teams in the league. For running backs, this is where the issue is. Najee Harris and Jerome Ford, I do like a lot here. Outside of that, there's nothing.
Because he only has one other running back.
Well, yeah, there is no depth, like zero depth. And his depth is the number 2 in Seattle.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a problem. Not even an injury. I mean, an injury like cripples his running back room. A bye week for his running backs is awful. So
I'll say this: he could contact me. I'd be interested in Jacoby Myers.
There you go. So as far as tight ends go, George Kittle and Ferguson, solid tight end room. We gave him a B plus. I think for the situation that the Crusaders were going into this game, I think he could have spent a little bit bigger early. But I know that this is a little bit more of a rebuilding year for the Crusaders. I think the route definitely sets him up good going forward, but I think he could have been a little bit more competitive earlier on with the bidding to make himself more competitive this year. But like I said, I think his core is starting to be built back here, and in the years going forward, he'll be fine. All right,
I think he's going back to his original role as the gatekeeper. I think this team is going to probably hover. I think his team will hover around the 500 mark.
I agree.
I think it's solid.
All right, let's move on to Sam Hodges and the Bear Boobs. We got Dak Prescott, Joe Burrow, Justin Fields. I think we gave him an A. Yeah, we gave him an A. I mean, Dak Prescott's going to be top 5. Joe Burrow, staying healthy, could be top 5. And Justin Fields, I like over Russell Wilson, and that could play a big part going forward. But I don't see, unless it's a bye week, I don't see where you don't play Dak Prescott and Joe Burrow. As far as running backs go, Derrick Henry, David Montgomery, Tony Pollard, Joe Mixon, Khalil Herbert, Antonio Gibson. He's got pretty decent depth here, and that's why we gave him an A minus in terms of running backs. Derrick Henry is obviously the marquee piece here. A lot of times he has to get ramped up throughout the season, and then he just ends up popping off. And the fact that he has good depth behind his running backs, I think, is what's good. This is where, and Rex and I kind of agreed on this. As far as wide receivers go, he's got the names, but I'm not 100% sure that week in and week out it is going to be the most consistent wide receiver room. And that is where I think this team will have the highest scoring week. But I don't know that it will do that week in and week out. And because of that, outside of AJ Brown and Stephon Diggs, his wide receivers are Gabe Davis, Sky Moore, DeAndre Hopkins, who's hurt, Brandon Cooks. He also has Jace Burton. Again, can't really predict what that's going to look like, especially with him being a rookie. I don't love the depth here in terms of the quality of depth, and that's why we gave him a B for the wide receivers. Tight ends, Evan Ingram, I don't love. Dallas Goedert, I do love just because he's going to be around the end zone a lot. And we gave him a B plus. Overall, B plus. I think Sam could have done a little bit better. He was bidding up everybody trying to get out, like fill his depth and just be done. I felt like during the draft, but I think it's going to be a fringe type playoff team. The consistency of the team is what concerns me. So let's move on to the Dallas Dragons. Let's see here. Rex, you want to talk about the Dragons real quick?
Yeah. So Kyler, on a great contract still from the Dragons. Then we have Deshaun Watson and Jaden Daniels. That is a pretty solid. The rushing upside with this team is very high. I don't know. I mean, Deshaun Watson's kind of a question mark. But then Jaden Daniels is, I mean, he's kind of in that Caleb Williams role. He looks really good, but he still hasn't played a regular season game yet. So, what did we end up giving him? Do you know?
For the quarterbacks, we gave him an A minus.
A minus. Yeah, I think it's a good.
The rushing upside, I think, is what really sold it.
Yeah, I think so too. Then the running back room, we got Saquon, Jahmyr Gibbs, Travis Etienne, Javonte Williams, Ty Chandler, Trey Sermon. Solid team. But what does concern me is the injury possibility here. This is like the all-injury team besides Etienne. Gibbs already dealing with some hamstring issues. Barkley hasn't been Barkley. He was solid last year, but he still hasn't been like Barkley of the old. Javonte Williams, there was a report out early this year that he might completely lose his role in Denver. It seems like he's kept it for now. But then like Ty Chandler, Trey Sermon, wild cards. So I think we probably gave him a B something on this, didn't we?
Yep, right, B.
Okay, B. Yep. And then for wide receivers, this is probably one of the best wide receiving cores in the league. Jefferson, Wilson, Dell, Dobbs, Burks, Johnston. I would say the top 3 or 4 guys are definitely starters.
Yeah,
and then you kind of fall off a cliff. I mean, I forgot Olave's down there.
Yeah, and then he also has Jalen Polk too in New England, who's also been very, very good.
Leggett. I mean, it's a good combo. He's got the youth along with some of the superstar level wide receivers that some of the other teams are missing. This team, I think this team's going to be a little bit all over the board, but I think that this team is probably a contender. I mean, I the more I look at it, the more I'm like, okay, dang, this team could be really good. And then rounding that out, I think we gave him an A plus on that.
Yeah, we did.
Tight ends,
A plus.
Freiermuth and Ertz and Hill, they have depth. Not a huge fan of Freiermuth this year, personally. I think we've seen what a tight end is like in Arthur Smith's system. Not great. So I think he's going to be searching at that tight end position a little bit, but he's got the depth to search. So I'm going to give him a B. But I think that this team is an absolute contender. We give them a B plus overall. I don't think it's an upper echelon team. I don't think it's probably a top 3 team in the league, but I think it's probably a playoff team.
All right, let's move on to the looters. Rex, you and I are both not very high on this team.
I'll just before you start, I want to say I think this draft strategy by the looters was awful last night. I think they absolutely botched this draft.
I know he's at the Cardinals game, so he won't really be able to.
He'll see it later, but I want him to know that I think he botched this draft big time.
So at the quarterback position, we have Patrick Mahomes, Trevor Lawrence, and Geno Smith. Patrick Mahomes is carrying a lot of weight in this quarterback grade. Michael Holmes agrees with what you said.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we gave him a B plus, but Patrick Mahomes is carrying a lot of that weight. Trevor Lawrence has had some down weeks, and I think you could even play somebody else in that super flex and think you might get more out of a position than Trevor Lawrence. Ramondre Stevenson, Kyron Williams, Singletary. Okay, so let's break this down. Ramondre Stevenson is the 1. Kyron Williams is the 1. Devin Singletary is technically the 1 for now. Mitchell's a backup. Moss is competing for the 1. Gainwell's a backup. Yeah,
but I don't like the Patriots offense. I don't like the Rams offense necessarily. I don't like the Giants offense. All these teams are going to be trailing.
And so that's why we gave him a B minus for running backs.
It's just I think Kyron Williams is he going to repeat what he did last year? He doesn't seem to me like the type of running back that has the body to take that same workload again. He just, to me, he's like some short little bum that's out there running around. Yeah. I just don't. I can't get on the Kyron Williams train.
And as Dylan said, check your inbox. As far as trades go, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the wide receivers. Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, Terry McLaurin, DK Metcalf, Darnell Mooney, Palmer, Whittington, Naylor, and he has Baker, Walker. Yeah. Okay. So Devontae Adams was not incredible last year. Cooper Kupp, I think, takes a step up this year. Terry McLaurin, if Jaden Daniels is good, great. DK Metcalf, I'm never high on DK Metcalf in general. I think he's got the names, but I think it's very similar to in the same vein of Sam's team, where he could put up some big weeks, but man, does the inconsistency concern me.
Yeah, this team has a low floor. This team is mid, king of mid. I hate this team. I absolutely hate this team.
So
I am not trying to be like an asshole, but I hate this team.
You were just building the bulletin board material, but that's funny.
We have him week 1. Week 1. I'm going to stomp his ass by 20.
We gave him a B for the wide receivers. As far as tight ends go, I like Dalton Kincaid. Hunter Henry, solid. And he's got TJ Hawkinson for the future. And Brock Bowers as well. It's a solid tight end room. And he's not going to have to worry about tight ends for the future. So I think he did very solid there. So there's your positive note. Torbeck, you got a B overall grade. I would love to hear your reaction to this after you get back from the Cardinals game. I think that's going to be good. All right, let's move on to the Shadow Troop. Okay. All right.
I'm gonna preface this by saying this flashed on the screen earlier, and I literally laughed for 5 minutes. Like I couldn't even eat my food I was eating because I was laughing so hard at this team.
Now, let me also preface this with we have had teams tank in season strategically to like better their draft picks and things like that. Never have I seen a team tank a draft in order to be able to tank a season. Holy shit. Okay. Justin Herbert, Anthony Richardson, Bo Nix, Bazooka Joe is your quarterbacks. Justin Herbert in Harbaugh's system, I think he's going to play handoff simulator for the most part of this year. They are going to be behind. So, yes, he will throw the ball. I understand that. But I just don't. I think we need to get out of the honeymoon phase with Justin Herbert. And I don't know. I don't know that he's going to perform this year. And I think that's fair to say. Let's see here. We gave him a C plus for quarterbacks. As far as running backs go, we have Kamara, Corum. Gus is crying about how bad this team is. Kamara, Corum, Madison, Dalvin Cook, who's not on a team. He does have Braylon Allen.
But Braylon Allen doesn't do shit. He doesn't even play.
I know.
This team literally has basically a whole bench of guys that aren't going to see the field.
He has a third-string quarterback on his fucking roster.
This team is so bad.
We gave him a D for running backs.
It should honestly be an F. If it wasn't for Alvin Kamara.
And he overpaid for Kamara.
Yeah.
So it's not even like he got value. Okay. Jamar Chase, Pittman, Judy, Addison. It's not terrible for the wide receivers, but he has no depth.
I would like to announce a trade has taken place in the GFA.
Uh-oh. Breaking news.
Breaking news.
What was the trade?
The trade is between the Clark County Crusaders and the Beecher Creatures. Ezekiel Elliott is going to the Crusaders and a 5th round 2025 pick for Jacoby Myers.
Interesting. I think that's pretty fair.
Yeah. I wanted one more wide receiver, so
and we know that Dylan needs running backs. So you know who else needs running backs? Lutz. Tight ends, he got a B minus. He has Laporta, who is good. This team sucks.
I seriously think this team may win one game all year.
This team could go winless. He's got a C. This is bad.
If he wins, he's gonna start out the year like 4-4, and then he's gonna lose the rest of the games.
Oh, but then I could make my famous fraud speech again. And yeah.
If this team wins even one game, they're a fraud.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the Cali Pigs. I think this is the last one. We have Dylan said, "Long live the Crusade. The gatekeeper is back." You are a gatekeeper now. All right. Matthew Stafford, Derek Carr,
thank you.
Russell Wilson. JJ McCarthy is hurt. Oh, got a glizzy.
Some glizzies, some French fries, and some Cheetos.
Man, boy dinner. Let's see here. For quarterbacks, we gave them a B. I think they're all solid. I don't think any of them like really stick out, especially Derek Carr. Not really. I think he ends up starting Russell Wilson over Derek Carr. I think that's just where it like sits right now. This QB room is worse than white guys for Kamala. All right. As far as running backs go, and this is the tough thing in the draft, a lot of the depth got expensive. So Zamir White, who I'm high on, but not for the price that Zamir White went for. I do like James Conner. Miles Sanders, I think could be good. Freeman, no. Nick Chubb is on the pup. Yeah, the running backs aren't great. We give him a B minus. Keenan Allen, I think will be good. Calvin Ridley could be very good. Mike Williams is coming off an ACL. Adam Thielen is old. But somebody's got to catch the ball there. I do like Rashid Shaheed, Wan'Dale Robinson. I think those are two very good youth pickups by Ryan. So I think those are solid for the future. But again, nothing really popping off here. So we gave him a B minus. And as far as tight ends go, Kyle Pitts could see an improvement. So I don't think that's terrible. Cade Otton, I think, is going to be good again this year, and the Bucks are going to score a lot of touchdowns. I'm very high on the Bucks this year. So we gave him a B. I think for what Ryan was working with, to be completely honest, I think what Ryan was working with, I think he did a very good job.
I agree with that.
In terms of building this team back from what was literally nothing outside of like Nick Chubb and a couple of other guys. I mean, he had to basically fill an entire roster.
Yeah, with like the least amount of money of anybody besides I think me in the draft.
He didn't have a ton of money going into it. I think he did a very good job for what he did. And I think this team will play spoiler and could like accidentally end up in the playoffs.
It's a competitive team week in, week out. I mean, yeah. They're probably not contending for a championship by any means, but you know, they're gonna I think him and Dylan are in very similar situations. I think Dylan may have a little bit better team, but I do think that this team is going to compete and kind of play spoiler.
Yeah, I would kind of describe them as a team you don't want to lose to, but if you do, you're not surprised. And I think that's where I kind of land on this team. So yeah, that's what I got. We could put them in order, but it's so hard to tell right now. It's kind of useless. So that's what we got. Right, that's what we had for you guys today. I hope y'all enjoyed. I think that the league is going to be pretty competitive this year. I don't know if we'll have a super standout team or not. I think it'll probably be the scenario where there's going to be like top 2 or 3 teams are going to be up there and like just cemented at the top, and then you have a lot of guys fighting it for the last 3 or 4 spots in the playoffs. I think that's kind of how it's going to look. So that's all I got for y'all today. And we will see you guys probably right before week 1.
See ya.